Everybody, welcome to another episode of the Prewsandvews podcast. Before we get on with today's episode, like, share, comment, subscribe. Okay, like, share, comment, and subscribe. Comment your opinions. Comment what you think about the issues that we talk about on the Prewsandvews podcast. The Prewsandvews podcast is all about opinions. It's all about your opinions, my opinions, everyone's opinions. We need everyone's opinion to be heard. It's only then that we are actually going to get our best solutions, to solve our predominant issues in Ghana. All right, so please comment on the video, or you can DM us on our social media accounts what you think. So yeah, today's issue, it's raining outside. Oh crap. So on today's episode, this was an issue which was much more predominant during the recent NSAS movement, the movement against police brutality in Nigeria. So the issue came up within that movement. Okay, so during the NSAS movement, I was on Twitter. I happened to find a particular set of arguments. All right, it was between Black Americans, all right, African Americans, right, and Africans. So the confusion came about because a few of us were trying to lump ourselves in with the Black Lives Matter movement. We're trying to join the movement, basically saying that, because we are Black, Black Lives Matter, Africans are, we are Black. So I guess we should be part of the movement then, and every issue that we face in Africa should basically be like an agenda of the Black Lives Matter movement. That sort of argument, Bob. But every time I saw a tweet or a comment like that, I'd realize that below the tweet, you'd find a lot of defensive African Americans, right, trying to say that no, you guys are not part of the movement. You guys are not part. But then, and we respond. You naturally respond by saying that, it's Black Lives Matter, right? We are Black, right? So aren't we all just part of the movement? So that was what caused the whole confusion. And I wanted to comment my opinion, but I needed to think about it and understand why African Americans got so defensive about it. Before I could actually give an opinion, I was going to be part of the movement, like, oh, come on, we are all Black, so aren't we all part of the Black Lives Matter movement? But I had to sit down and think about it very well and understand where the African Americans were coming from. So before you can understand where they were coming from, you have to first know or first think about what the Black Lives Matter is fighting for. The Black Lives Matter is basically fighting against racism, bigotry, everything that comes along with it. Okay, racism. That's what the Black Lives Matter fights against. You need to think back to when we were all in Africa, okay, where every Black person was in Africa. The white man came to Africa, slavery happened. Some people got sold, some people got taken away. Before they got taken away, we all basically had the same lived experience. But then when they were taken away from us, our lived experiences started to separate a lot more as the years really went by. What I mean by this is, when they went out there, they had to go through racism. Okay, they had to go through racism, bigotry, slavery, everything that comes with that. And we had to go through, colonialism. We had to go through, fighting for our independence. Post-colonialism also had its own issues. So we also had a lot of things that we experienced that we had to fight against. And they also had theirs, all right? So based on our lived experiences, you'd have to admit that even though we are all Black, we all have the same skin color, we are not entirely the same because we haven't been through the same things. Okay, we've been through very different things. Even though they are all problems, they are all not good things, but they are very different layers of bad things that happen. So I thought about that and I realized they could actually have a point there. We don't necessarily go through racism like they do. You can't tell me that, we also go through racism like they do. No, we don't. It's totally different, So in that sense, you'd have to understand why they'll get so defensive when you're trying to lump in your movement with the Black Lives Matter movement. You have to understand why they'll get so defensive about it. Racism is a very touchy subject, and it hasn't been easy for them, trying to solve it, trying to live through America, trying to live through life, with racism and bigotry. Okay, we don't understand that. And you can't have a movement which fights different things. Every movement has its aim and what it's fighting for. If you have one movement which has so many causes to fight for, it becomes very difficult to solve them all, okay? Because the level of concentration you would have had to tackle one issue, you now have to spread it among so many issues to tackle them, and you'd probably solve the issues very slow, like very, very slowly. So the best thing to do is to have little movements which fight for specific issues. So the Black Lives Matter movement doesn't fight, child poverty, child hunger, child human trafficking. You need to understand that the Black Lives Matter movement is not an all-encompassing movement. You are doing no favors to them by trying to lump yourselves in with the movement. To them, they might think that you are trying to undermine their movement. So you need to think that way. You need to think about it from their perspective to understand why they get so defensive about it. So I thought about it, and those were my thoughts. Okay, those were what came to my mind, and I sort of understood why they got so defensive about us trying to lump ourselves in with the movement. But then I would have to see one thing. They already had the EndSARS movement. It was a big movement. It was trending. Everybody heard about it. Most people tweeted about it. Most of us were against police brutality, okay? Most of us stood with Nigeria. I don't understand why, even after having a movement like that, being very popular, why you try to also lump yourself in with the Black Lives Matter movement, saying that, we are all black, so, it should also be fighting for the African cause. It has a very specific issue that it tackles, and EndSARS also has a very specific issue that it tackles. So in that sense, you'd have to understand why they get so defensive about it. On Twitter, you don't find a lot of people who actually sit down and have deep thoughts about issues and tweet them out, because you need to tweet as soon as possible. You see something on Twitter, you can't think about it for that long. You can't process it in your mind for that long. You feel like, okay, I need to have a fast response to the issue. So you fail to actually sit down and break the issue down before you have a good enough conclusion an opinion about the issue which was posted or which you saw. All right, so I think we need to do more of sitting down and actually trying to understand, try to read the lines, try to deep it, and try to understand people's perspective. I think it's easy to just assume that one person is evil. You're actually being very disingenuous to the subject by just saying that, okay, you are wrong, I'm right, without trying to understand where one person is coming from. So in that sense, I think we need to actually think a lot more before we make comments on issues. Don't try to lump yourself in with the Black Lives Matter movement. We can have our own movements which fight for our issues, fight for the things that happen to us on a daily basis. We have a lot. You and I both know the corruption. You have police brutality in Ghana. It's just so many, poverty. It's many. I'll be able to, if I decide to list them all down, it would be a lot. We know our issues, so we can have our own movements that fight against those issues. So that was my observation, and that was the conclusion I came to. So yeah, after watching this, after listening to this, you need to let me know what you think. I might be wrong, I might be right. I'm not the guy with all the answers. I'm just a regular guy. I think about the issues as deep as I can, and I bring out the issue. I bring out what I think about the issue, my answer, in hope that whatever my answer might be would create a ripple effect which would have people engage in a lot more discussions, to try to understand issues, to try to make issues make sense, to try to solve issues. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and follow our social media platforms. We basically have nothing going on there, but you could just follow us in the for the future. All right, so that will be it.